Welcome back to the podcast. This week, we're sharing one of my favourite episodes so far, part of our new series of recap episodes. While we're busy producing new content for the podcast, YouTube, and our brand new Patreon channel. That's right, Connect, Curate, Create is now on Patreon. It's a dedicated space to learn, share, and grow together. And here's why we built it. Do you feel like your art is being seen by the right people? Are you getting the kind of feedback that actually helps you grow? Do you have a space where you can learn with other artists who really get what you're doing? If you answered no to any of these questions, Connect, Curate, Create is here for you. Our Patreon community gets exclusive and early access to content, behind the scenes videos, key takeaways from episodes and events, access to live discussions with our guests, and so much more. So, if you're ready to grow your creative practice with the support of a collaborative learning community, click the Patreon link in the show notes and join us today. Now, let's get into another brilliant episode, packed with ideas and inspiration for your own creative journey. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm here in Launceston again, and again, we're videoing this one. So if you're on the audio, be sure to check this out on YouTube too. I'm here with Bianca Jagoe. Bianca is an illustrator, and I have admired Bianca's work for a while, and we're surrounded by it here in the studio. It's just fabulous. So Bianca, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Such a privilege.
Yeah, no, it's great. We've got lots to talk about. We've already been chatting for ages while we've been setting up, and we've had donut.
I haven't actually tasted mine yet, but I will.
Maybe that'll come in later. There's a little story behind that, but maybe we don't all need to hear that one. But anyway, yeah, look, like I say, I think I discovered your work last year's Small Press Hobart Zine Fair.
Yeah.
And the next one's coming up soon, so we might get to that later. But look, there's got to be a huge backstory behind that. So where did all this begin? Illustration,
yeah. I guess I was thinking to myself the other day about my eldest son. When he was small, he'd just wake up from a nap and have to compulsively draw for a couple of hours. And I thought that was really normal. Because that's how I had been. And then my subsequent children are much less like that. And my 5-year-old will kind of do a drawing and be like, yes, done, next thing. And I'm like, what? Really immersed yourself in the, the quality of the materials. So just always drew. I used to draw on furniture and walls. And it's just been a constant of wanting to draw, needing to draw, loving to draw, not really preoccupying myself too much with being good at it. Just, you just develop your own way of drawing, your way of seeing things. And
Yeah, right. And I'm guessing colour is a big part of that because we have a lot of colour here.
Yeah, my 11-year-old will only ever use a lead pencil, and it kind of it's heartbreaking. Oh, sorry, little doggy there. I do have a little zappy.
Oh, you don't need to zap the dog.
I won't zap them, but we'll accept that there's some doggishness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Look, if we were doing this online and I was at home, I'm sure Bjarni, my dog, would be doing the same. So look, we don't have to worry about dogs.
Oh, thank you.
I don't think the audience will be able to hear it actually. So,
okay, good. Yeah, we won't mention it. It's not happening.
No. Yeah. Okay. So just lead pencils.
Yeah. He won't. He used to. He draws. He makes his own Pokemon. He calls them Fakemon. He gets me to do it too, but I must have lost that little bit of magic childhood creativity where you can just invent on command.
Yeah.
I really watching his style develop and just amazed at how he can draw something without reference or that kind of stuff has always been really important to me, of holding on to that playfulness, mindfulness, observation, just kind of rooting yourself in your real life. And taking it in and making, I guess it's the kind of the quotidian, art in the everyday, that if your eyes are open to it, you can't stop seeing it.
Yeah. So what was your Fakemon?
Something where it was really deeply derivative of other real Pokemon.
Yeah.
But he'll find search history on my iPad will be like Greek mythology, and he will be researching, just different concepts that he can then translate, their abilities, their moves inspired by, Greek myth or something. And it's really cool to watch.
Oh, wow. So I guess he's sort of working through ideas through illustration, as you would have done as a kid.
Yeah, totally. And I think drawing is probably a safe place for me as well. Like it was, I think a lot of artists and people that you've spoken to have talked about it being kind of grounding, whatever art they're making. It's, kind of keeps them mentally healthy in times when you might not have been otherwise. And I had quite a challenging childhood, and drawing it out, kind of documenting obsessively, drawing everything. It's just been a constant for me. Yeah.
And have you kept work from back then, or?
I left home kind of when I was very young, and so I don't have a lot of stuff from that period of time. But bits and pieces. I remember there's this picture, I don't have it with me, but it was kind of from preschool, and I had drawn my mum picking potatoes. They were kind of levitating out of the ground. But it probably would have been about three or four. And it was an objectively good drawing for a 3 or 4 year old, I suppose. And I had an award on it. I'd won like the Stroud Country Fair, not Country Fair, but we have a rolling pin throwing brick and rolling pin competition in Stroud, little town where I came from. I think that picture's somewhere, and I had it in a frame of my original little essence of making.
So illustration has always been something for you to make sense of the world, for your well-being as well.
Yeah, definitely. I did go, so finished high school in New South Wales, and I came down to Tassie and I had a blog for a long time, and that was just a really nice way to kind of build a community and have maybe make art for that purpose, or just make art and have somewhere to kind of connect with other people about it. And then I went to I had a degree in contemporary art from UTAS, and I got to make zines. I made zines for my degree, which was fun.
Cool.
I remember my husband at the time was doing a much more academic degree, and the things that he'd have to do when we got home compared to I'd be making like origami or something, for my degree. But I think things like that are just really what you make it,
Yes.
what you bring to it.
And perhaps that feeds into a perception of art by those who aren't involved in it, that it is just, you said about playfulness, but there's it's serious play. It's
I take it very seriously. Yeah, yeah, I do. And I think I've started. I haven't finished this Masters of Teaching, and I think the motivation for that for me, it was just fully about making art for young people accessible, making it fun, making it interesting, making it. But more broadly than art, it's just about your worldview, how you are absorbing. I feel like I will never run out of ideas. I'm not the most technical, art maker, but I'm just like the ideas just come faster than I can, hold on to them and make them a reality sometimes. So I just want young people to absorb their life and make art from it in whatever medium, whatever, however they do it. It gives your life more meaning, gives your life more, even when you're in circumstances that aren't positive. If you have a way to process them creatively, I think you are it puts you in a much better headspace as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I before the interview, as I say, we were chatting so much, and one of the things I brought up was how, in my 15 years ago, I didn't really document my life, and I was stuck with ideas in my work, in my life, and would go to a cafe and open a notebook and just be completely stuck. But what unlocked that was doodling. I mean, and
Magic.
People might see that as quite trite, and but the doodling led to being, I couldn't put words on the page, but eventually the doodles got a bit more serious, and then words started to flow, and it was a way of unlocking, and Steph mentioned that in his interview as well, but. Yeah, so through your teaching degree, master's of teaching, so you want to be able to use what you're learning there to and empower kids to.
Oh yeah, because I really genuinely think that having those outlets and opportunities to make art as a young person was survival, really. Kind of to have not had that along the way, it kind of saves you a little bit. I think it gives you just distraction, way to process things, a kind of a constant that's a comfort, if you I'm kind of in the spinning the many plates of my life at the moment with 3 children, just making art and making time for art and feeling like I should make art, I'm entitled to make art, I need to make art, and I'm going to make it. I'm like, on the days that I have my children, I might, I still have to do a little bit of work, and I'm sitting on the couch with my iPad and we've got a movie on, and there's one child on one side and one on the other side, and they're both knocking me as I'm trying to illustrate on an iPad, and there's, at least it's not permanent marks on a piece of paper, but it's just this like, I think I've got a couple of books I think about motherhood and creativity, and I think there's a Del Catherine Barton and Claire Bowditch were mentioned in one of these books about how you straddle motherhood, parenting, and creative pursuits. But I really hated the book, actually, wherever it is, because it just felt really, I don't know, parenting for me is just such a immense privilege. It's just, I mean, they are your life's work. They're your, just created these fantastic, interesting beings that, I accept that I might have to put some of my ambitions on hold, or they're flowing along in the background, and you can't dedicate the amount of time and effort and love to them that you might want to, because you're doing the big work of having those small people.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. No, look, I don't have kids, but I understand what you're saying. Chris Donahue speaks about this in Chris's episode, and and I think we could give it any sort of label like immaterial labor or whatever it is, but it's work, right?
Totally.
And it's important work, and so raising a family, and what a space to raise a family. Before I even came in the front gate, I was greeted by your community lemon box.
Oh yes. And then did you spin the wheel as well?
Not yet. I thought I'd do it on the way out.
There's a sort of wheel of good fortune. And you spin it and it gives you a little instruction for the day.
I did see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I hear people when I'm working. I can hear some people spinning it, and I look at it and think it's going to be a small child, and it's usually like a tradie. Like, I hope you go and find 5 orange things on your walk today, whatever it says on the.
But embracing their inner child.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we call it inner child, but I think I've been doing it for so long. Why do we isolate it to that you can only play? If you're a child, you can only I think we take ourselves very seriously. We kind of even trying to justify carving out time to make art or to journal or whatever. Sometimes that's hard for me because I think, there are more pressing adult matters at hand. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. But what a delightful space for your kids to be growing up in. You've created this.
Make it fun and playful and colourful, and you can draw on a wall if you must.
Do you have special paint to some of that?
No, I just have a kind of. I feel like when you have. I thought about making a zine about this, of just kind of like things to know in anticipation for parenthood that you don't get told, like if your child draws in pen on the wall, and you can remove it with a bit of hairspray. You just spray it with hairspray and you can wipe it off. Not too much, or it will damage the paint. Or if it's pencil or crayon, you can use bicarb soda and water and you can kind of abrase it off. Anyway, just sort of it's vital information for a parent, but you might not know.
Yes.
Stain removal, how to remove my Google search history is all about like how to remove odours and fecal matter. But Play-Doh, I guess, is one. Play-Doh in the carpet. Oh yeah. See, I think I just let my children do those things and then I just curse afterwards and clean up the mess. I think it's better that they get to do it and that they don't. I don't make them feel like, oh, don't get dirty, don't
absolutely
make a mess, don't have fun.
I guess you would have been doing the same thing.
Oh yes, but probably way more. Yeah, we lived in the middle of the bush, just a bit of a left to play on my own. Building things and making things, and my mum even talks about that she saw me go down to we had a dam at the bottom of the property and I was really small and I'd gone down and collected up all of this clay there and I made little pinch pots, and then she just found the pinch pots and she was thinking I didn't give her, because my mum had been doing a pottery class and so I would have seen her using her clay and gone and fetched my own, kind of carved it out of the ground and just trying my hand at that. It was a very isolated way to grow up. I think I'm quite enjoying. You said living further afield and getting to really immerse yourself in that and enjoy it, not having to be a part of the kind of chaos and overstimulation of the city. But I never lived in suburbia growing up. I lived out in the middle of nowhere with no neighbours and all the things that go along with that kind of lifestyle of good and bad. And then here I'm just, my children's school is minutes away, but it's kind of like some kind of unspoken rule of like the closer that you live to the school, the later you are. No concept of how to get there on time. I hope. I always worry about, am I offering enough opportunities for making and creativity for my children? But I feel like if you're worrying about it, you probably are doing it. If you're worried about being, am I a good enough parent? Am I doing enough? Then you're probably doing a fair amount. And your kids are, as you said, you saw your mum making clay, so that translated into, and you sort of, and here, just to be surrounded by all these wonderful things and tactile things. And it's not on camera, but on the wall over here, you have balls of wool. On a board, arranged on a board. I just had to find a way to store them because they just were in tubs taking up space, and I thought I do make things with the yarn, but just to have something that's almost an artwork in itself is a nice way to do it. Yeah,
it's lovely.
Life is art.
I mentioned small press zine fair in Hobart last year, and so I had a stall and you had a stall. You made the posters.
I did make the posters,
But I remember right at the end, I sort of I just went for a wander, and it was my first zine fair, so I really wasn't,
newbie.
And so I just sort of wanted to meet all these cool people, but your youngest was with you, and was it your mum, I think, was with you? Well, so
No, it was my friend's mum.
Ah.
Yeah, my friend's mum.
And so I spoke to your friend's mum,
Oh,
but
yeah,
didn't get a
yeah.
chance to speak to you because you were busy packing up. But that was the thing, is to bring your
it was
youngest
a
along.
busy one for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to bring her is a kind of, I guess that's kind of my ethos with parenting, is you just do the stuff with them there. And you know, people often say, well, how do you get your children to be readers? How do you get them to, oh, they're all screen obsessed. Well, they need to observe you reading, you know, you need to make it normal. And so I think, with creative things, I often find my work iPad, my expensive work iPad, my daughter, my 2-year-old will, I'll find it on the ground somewhere in a different room and open it, and she will have opened the Notes app somehow and just drawn pictures and drawn faces and and I think, wow, it's like me with the clay, I suppose. Just it's magic.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's sharing and caring, I'm trying to search for the term, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's happening, and that's the thing.
For sure. In their own individual ways, I think. However they,
Yeah. So you're doing a teaching degree right now, or you've finished?
I've put it on pause while I've had too many children, too many plates spinning.
Yeah.
I have a chronic illness as well, so there's always this kind of the metaphor of spinning plates is always really relevant to me, of the ones that are made of plastic and the ones that are precious, you know, that you can't drop, and sometimes the plastic ones are your art making, you know, that's why it's fallen, been kicked under the couch, also you're going to go back and get it and put it back up and validate it and make it happen. But I think making art while ill, making art while, you know, you have children, you know, or you know, if people don't have children, it's kind of the adult responsibilities of life that might get in the way of your focus on your art. I think that's always a bit of a balancing act.
Yes. Yeah. So what are you working on right now?
I just work kind of freelance at the moment. I would like to return to that master's degree at some stage, but I just worked on a book that just arrived. I got my box. I filmed an unboxing video. I've never done one of those before. There's a YouTube, you know, people love pulling things out of the box. So this book I worked on with an American publisher, a Canadian publisher, an American author. The author's name is Cole Imperi, and she's a thanatologist. She works with kind of in the death sphere. And we worked on this book for 10 to 14-year-olds about grief. And I illustrated it, and it's just come out. It's coming out in October. And you can buy it on Amazon and a couple of different places. I think it will have an international release. And it was just a really lovely project.
Could have a look.
You should.
Thank you.
But for the first copy, so heartbreaking. I was doing my unboxing video with a like a Stanley knife, and I cut the cover.
Oh,
heartbreaking. Yes. So it's just a lovely project. I was mentioned earlier that it kind of the magical kismet of how the things aligned to that I got the opportunity to do this was that Cole was an internet friend from a long time ago. We used to both have blogs about mail art or letter writing. Forms of art like that, like mail, decorating envelopes and sending them through the mail. I used to sometimes just try to send really random objects and just see if they get there. Yeah. You know, just like a vegetable or something. I have a little website from how long ago? A very long time ago, called mailtag.com.au, and it's like about it's got a little generator for you to it generates ideas for you about things to ask your pen pals for, and there's a bit of a form that you can print out. It's this game that you play, tag, essentially, through the mail. It's funny because mail tag was this thing I kind of made up, I suppose, and was playing with friends, and then now if you look on Pinterest and Instagram, it's a massive thing that is completely separate from me. nothing to do with me. And sometimes I'll even see people go, where did mail tag come from? Nobody knows. And I kind of am satisfied with that. You just,
put it
I'd
out
like
in the
just,
world.
you just put it out. Yeah. And you just let
wow.
it go. Let it, whew, off it goes, becomes a thing.
And that's how you met Carl.
Yeah. And so we worked on this book together. She'd already done the manuscript. She's got a second book coming out, I think, with Penguin in a little while, I think, for adults on a similar subject. But this one was for 10 to 14-year-olds about grief and my own experience with childhood loss of a parent. Was really made it a really satisfying and meaningful project to work on, because it was just deeply personal for me, and considering what a book like that in my hands when I was 10, what that would have given me of just normalising grief and the non-linear nature of it and validating some of the feelings about it. So it was a really lovely, hard project to work on, but really excited to see in the real life. I didn't know it was going to be a hardcover. I feel like somehow
oh yeah,
ooh, and it's kind of like got shiny bits and it's wild. I've worked on book projects before, but probably nothing of that scale. I kind of worked on book covers and things like that.
Yep.
And I do some work for the council. I think last year I did the suite of Christmas decorations for the city of Launceston, so all the banners, and they'll get reused again this year, I think. And I just worked on a couple of maps. It was like seeing maps in my sleep for a while. It was this immersive map making experience for city of Launceston. You kind of tear off map that you'd get at the airport or information centre or something like that. So we did like a double-sided map that I had this idea that because they wanted an A3, and I thought, well, that's just unwieldy. How do you fold it? And to fold it up into almost a little zine. So we love zines. I love making zines. So this map that we made, it's all sectioned up so that I was trying to anticipate how somebody might fold an A3 piece of paper. If I gave it to you, would you fold it,
yes,
landscape in, and I think I gave it to my stepdad and he just folded it in a really weird way. And I was like, well, I can't anticipate that. I'm trying to trying to design it so that it all folds beautifully, no matter how you fold it. And then I was like, Jeff, what? A left of field thinker, perhaps. I've had some really, really fun, really diverse projects the last year or two, and I feel like I've become a bit of somebody that people come to with graphic design or illustration projects, that they don't know who else fits that bill. I think people knowing that you're somebody who can, a jack of all trades kind of, or just willing to learn. I think that's something my stepdad did for me, because he's a very practical person. He's an engineer, like yourself, and infected my brain with this sense of that you can solve any problem yourself, which is such a blessing and a curse, because I just get myself into situations where I'm insistent on fixing a problem. I love problem solving. I think that's why graphic design and illustration is so fun for me, because it's just solving these visual problems. But I think outside of that, I love solving problems so much that sometimes I just make the problems myself that didn't exist before. But my stepdad just really empowered me with a sense of that, well, you can figure it out. You can do it, just work out, fixing your car or you getting up on the roof, and we had the terrible storms last couple of weeks, and the house was totally fine except for
I can see
like some water dripping down the walls that I have to try to go up and solve. Maybe not, maybe I won't. I think I've been doing a lot of just pure graphic design jobs lately, which I haven't done a massive amount of for a while, and it's funny just to make the first couple of graphic design jobs I got, I thought, people get paid for this? Like it just feels, it doesn't, because it doesn't really take any, I mean, it does take something from you creatively to do that type of work, obviously, but a lot of it is just mechanical almost, it's not challenging in that way that makes the sparks fly or the frustration of trying to solve an art problem sometimes. So that's a comfort to do that type of work sometimes. It's not so the mental load of making art. Yeah.
No, I've mentioned before the interview with you that I sort of really interested in graphic design, always have been, but it was always put on the back burner. And I went into engineering thinking I'd become a draftsman, actually. But graphic design is but the interesting thing about graphic design, I think, is that there's a lot that's unsaid and a lot of unwritten rules, probably.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, things like, in typology, that's what I'm learning about at the moment is just subtle tweaks to the connect, curate, create branding.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the logo,
I like your
but
branding.
the text. Thank you. Thanks. Here, you got it.
Pops.
Got it up here.
I do, yeah.
Thank you. That's great feedback. But yeah, but I suppose the thing about graphic design is, like, I did I'm doing one of those online sort of short course. In fact, I did one that sort of like it took a day to do or something with graphic design professionals. But there was so much of it was just common sense. And it, things like, just go and get some influences, and we're surrounded with them here. Yeah. And so, but then there's something in that can't be said. So there's a lot to being an illustrator, to being a graphic designer, being any kind of artist that we just really can't put into words, but is so, and so unique to us as individuals that we shouldn't take it for granted.
Yeah, for sure.
But
a kind of assumed knowledge almost.
Yeah, and it's taken years. You've been doing this since you were 3 years old, at least. So Sure. I remember even though I grew up really poor, periods of kind of poverty, I suppose. But we always had a computer, which I always found that really weird. I was like, why did we have a computer? Because my mum valued that, and she, I think when she was much younger, she did some of the first courses at university on computers, and so think of like digital immigrants and digital natives. She'd very much resent being called a digital immigrant because she deeply, feels like, well, I'm up with it. I know what's going on, Okay. But then she does talk about the gremlins in her phone that like wreak havoc on her life, and there's nothing to do with me. It's the phones. Yes. Yeah. But the other thing that I think shone through in what you were saying before, Bianca, was how this practice that you've had throughout your life translates into something that can convey meaning to others, whether it's a book cover, whether it's the art for a Christmas campaign in the local city, or whatever it is, the poster for the zine fair. I mean, I have some of the prints because I just loved it so much.
I don't think unfortunately, I can't go to this year's zine fair. I know, I'm really sad about it. Taking my son to PAX in Melbourne that weekend. I don't think they've got a poster this year that I've seen. Not yet. Maybe I should just offer to do it freebie. I'll just make one for them, and just if you want that, you can have it. Zines as well. I made my first zine. I was talking to my son about it the other day when I was maybe 15 or 16. It's called QWERTY, like the keyboard.
Oh yeah, keyboard.
And it was just a real mishmash of stuff. But I have a couple of my zines here actually, and I lots of different topics, lots of different things. I made one for university. It was about I was really interested in the kind of fallibility of memory, and did this project for the end of my degree about memories of my dad. So he died when I was 10. So I had this beautiful studio space that I got to inhabit at the university. And when I first got in there, I just wrote down, I had a pad of Post-it notes, and I just tried to write down every single memory that I could think of my dad, and you have to acknowledge that maybe they're not all 100% truthful. I mean, you hope that they are. Oh, my dad really liked olives. Oh, I think he liked it. Because I think I was in my mid-20s at that point, and he's almost become like this, like a character, because such a long time, since he was in my life. And I think the closer I get to the age that he died when he was 39.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, what? You hold your parents on a pedestal, maybe, if that they are somebody. So I wrote down all these memories, and I stuck them all over this wall in my studio space, and then just made art about the different memories, and kind of in lots of different mediums. And I wrote a lot about memory, and I read a lot of Oliver Sacks and neuroscience papers and things like that. And it became this zine called Paint It Black. Is that what it's called? Gosh, I've forgotten. It was such a long time ago. My dad really liked the Rolling Stones.
Yes.
So my name's Bianca Jagoe, like Bianca Jagger, Mick Jagger's wife. So I think zines are just a really nice little way to ruminate on a topic, or get to explore something in that format in a low pressure way. I think that's what I'd really love for young people to. When I was doing my Masters of Teaching, the lesson plan would always be, make a zine. Again? I'd hope that they just have a little library of their own zines. I feel like you can do that for any topic, any subject. Make a zine about it. You can almost use it as an insult to me, I think. It's like, God, Bianca, shut up, go make a zine about it. But I have a couple of zines I made. I document things my son said when he was growing up, my eldest son. Mm-hmm. And then he got to maybe about 8 or 9, and I had to stop because he just wouldn't stop talking about his own penis. Oh. And it had a name, and it became this character in our lives. And I thought, I don't think I can ethically make art about that anymore. He wanted me to, but
maybe that's a project for himself one day.
Sure. He became aware of that I was documenting the things he was saying and doing, and would start to kind of like write that one down. Kind of thing. And then I think zines are just a really nice, accessible, simple, meaningful way to distribute your art in a kind of, it doesn't take too much work to do. I think people think that it does, but I think everybody's got a zine in them.
That's a wonderful way of thinking about it.
Yeah, at least one.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a business school academic, and in recent years, like you, I always wanted to play around with the format of the teaching, and because I always recognised the neurodiversity, the in the room, and that some of these subjects I was teaching are quite dry. Who wants to?
How do you make them accessible and make the concepts pop?
Yeah, and I used zine making in recent times.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and the kids. They're not kids, but this particular group that came to mind who were. The very recent group of students, most of them being the generation during the pandemic, they would have been year 10, and so they had learning, coming to class and learning in these really normalized, conventional, orthodox ways just wasn't suiting them.
For sure.
And using zines, and so they give them a sheet of A3 paper and a Sharpie, and they could take the Sharpie home, let's sit for 2 hours and reflect on what you've been learning and put it into a zine. And the amazing thing for me is that I can remember one particular student who hadn't said anything for weeks. Never seemed to be fully engaged, but
they're the ones
kept
who make
showing
the
up.
best scenes.
Yeah,
I feel like they've got
so
much inside.
They asked permission. we're about 15 minutes into the exercise. Everyone's sort of chatting away, and they looked up to me and said, "Am I allowed to draw?"
Oh, yes,
And I
please.
said, "There you go." That's what my response was.
Yeah.
And they finished ahead of everyone else. They had the biggest smile.
Yeah. Oh, it's very not labor of love. I'm trying to think of the way that you can describe things like that just push you along emotionally, mentally. I made the thing, and it's I'm better for it.
Yeah, and it's how that particular person is able to express themselves.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
to whatever it's done for them, and hopefully it carries on.
Yeah, I've taught a couple of zine workshops. I taught one at Mish Makers, this City Mission. They have a really cool creative program for young people. Worked with them a couple of times and did a zine workshop. But it's different when you're doing a zine workshop with people who don't have a knowledge of what zines are. Maybe that's better sometimes, but I've kind of had all these documents that I had drawn to explain to them what is. I made a zine about telling them what a zine was, and that they were going to be making a zine, and they were, I don't know, slightly reluctant, I suppose. Drag them kicking and screaming to make the zine, but I've got a really big collection of zines. Actually, I've often thought it would be cool to have a zine library in town.
Yes.
I have a friend who works at the library. If you're listening, Matthew, let's make this happen. We talk about kind of hierarchies of art, of what is real art, what is kind of what do we as a society see as worthwhile art that's worth money or that's worth your attention or your time, and then there's zines. But I like how unassuming they are. I've got lots of zines that it's some of the most brilliant writing and most brilliant illustration you've ever seen in your life, but it's just in that little paper, DIY format, hiding in there for you to see, and that's the brilliance of it. I think it's there's just so much you can do with it.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm completely on the same page with my photography. I make I travel to exotic places, and I have very expensive cameras, and I make these incredible photographs that I then spend hours working with, and then I photocopy them.
Yes. And the highbrow and the lowbrow and the
just like the idea of putting it in a frame. I've tried.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel right for me.
No, it's like that, isn't it? I've often, my stepdad, the engineer, he would be like, Bianca, you're thinking too small. You got to think big, not just making craft. We've got to get into manufacturing. How are we going to make it? And that's awesome, but I think maybe because a lot of my life was spent surviving, I didn't let myself have lofty goals. When I moved to Tasmania, some friends of mine started this awesome cafe, or another friend had this excellent jewelry business, and she was only really young. It was really, mentioned in Frankie, and I just thought, wow, I'm just doing little works on a little piece of paper. I wouldn't let myself pull out from that. But I think challenging yourself is one thing, but I think just giving yourself permission to work in the format that feels the best for you and the way that you want to share it with other people, or if you even want to share it with other people. I'm probably taking a little bit of a break from social media for a little while, reassessing. I think maybe earlier in my life as a chronically online person and a chronically documenting person, oversharing person, of then maybe coming to that it was probably rooted in needing validation somewhat from other people, which I no longer have. And so, then it's a nice moment to be in, of deciding to share things with the world, just purely to connect, and not a sense of making things for Instagram, making things for any other reason, but that it aligns with you. And I'm just while I'm in this period of time where I'm kind of have my children, and I still have some bigger projects in the background, but I have a little bit of time to take stock and to think about what are my objectives, what are my values, am I aligning with that, and is the work that I am going to make in the future aligning with that? It's always a lot of creative people you would speak to about trying to make money, trying to survive financially as an artist, and the ways that you have to do that. You know, for a very long time, maybe 11 or 12 years, I worked at a supermarket.
Yeah.
And I kind of dragged myself kicking and screaming to make myself leave that job because I so deeply enjoyed it, being a checkout girl. But from my very first day as a checkout girl, I had this old man, and this was my first ever job, proper job. And I just said to him, "Do you need a receipt?" And he said, "I don't need a receipt. I'm not from this planet." And then just walked off. And I think it just planted this seed for me of that these jobs, these service jobs, these kind of, I think that unskilled jobs, I think that's just a horrible phrase that people use to elevate or devalue different types of work. And so I grappled a little bit with, like, am I allowed to enjoy this job as much as I'm enjoying it? Because it was this being a little bit shy, and then getting kind of unadulterated access to the general public and being almost this fly on the wall. I could ask questions that other people can't ask, strangers, because I had this privileged, safe place to ask them from. So I never had a script of, how's your day? Do you like about, it would just always be, it takes a lot of mental effort probably to be genuine, but it was always, I'd be asking questions to try to pull a little bit more out, what have you been up to today? What's your week? How's your week going? And they give you more context, and they would share things with you that were, I still think, oh man, what an immense privilege to get to do that job of how much people would give you. And I would I'd print out a blank receipt at the start of a shift, and I would write down just key phrases so that later on I could go home and write them all up.
Yeah.
Fill them all out. And I still have pages and pages and pages of these anecdotes, and I would share them on Facebook sometimes, and completely at odds with the social media policy of Coles. And SBS, somebody at SBS once asked me to turn it into a webcomic, and I kind of started going through the motions of that, and then I thought, I'm going to lose my job if I do this, and I actually need that job. And I would have had to have removed any kind of identifying features from myself and the work to make it, okay to do. But just making your everyday life have meaning in that way was really incredibly valuable to my mental health, I think, to just, who am I going to speak to today? What's that going to... and I'd be so disappointed when I go through a whole shift and I would have my eyes open, trying to absorb and take in all the bits, and maybe nobody was offering anything to me. And then I'd maybe think about, well, what are the sounds of the supermarket today? There's this chute that you kind of
I love
vacuum
those.
chute.
Yes.
That you put the money in, and you're not allowed to stick your arm too far up there, it gets stuck. I had a manager once get her arm stuck and had to pretend that nothing was going to get it out. When you put it up, it kind of sucks it up, this vacuum kind of thing, and when it's finished, it makes this kind of belching noise. No, it's good little machine.
See, I'm old enough to remember those things from factories, and it's before
the mechanics behind the scenes.
It's when you used to sit at your typewriter and type a memo, and then put it in a tube and shove it up and it would go to somewhere else in the factory.
I used to imagine that when you put the money in there, where did it go? Where does it go? What does it do? And I just imagine that it just explodes into a pit of Coles money. But sometimes I think I could hear the scanner beep in my day-to-day life, and I can still remember that when I first started, you had to recall PLU codes for different products, especially fruit and vegetables. And sometimes managers would come around and be like, broccoli, just yelled at you, and you'd be like, 30. Or I'll never forget the code for limes, because they wouldn't go in manually, and I had to manually put them in. They wouldn't go in automatically on an early shift, and I was like, never forget the PLU for limes.
Yes.
So I mean, I would still love to turn all of that work into a project, but I haven't found the way to do it yet, because it was kind of like, well, I could have been a podcast, just fully do a podcast, or a graphic novel, or a fiction or non-fiction kind of work about immersing yourself in a job that a lot of people that I would serve, they would say, what else do you do? You know, like that.
Yeah.
This is a kind of undercurrent of, I hope that you don't just do this job, because it's, they're trying to give you a compliment, I suppose. It's beneath you, you know, to do a job like that. But they're vital jobs that are essential for our survival. And I always felt really annoyed, like, how dare you tell me I'm not allowed to enjoy being a checkout girl? But then I went back after maternity leave, and I'd work nights, and I would work with there's a lot of people who work there for their whole life. You know, they have the badge that says they've been, and then there's young people that are kind of more transient. And I was this strange one. I just kept going, even though I had other things I could have been doing. But it's there's something about doing something that you know you're good at. I could be the best checkout girl that could ever be. Whereas making art or making a living from art took more mental effort. But I was working with a young fellow one night, and he just said to me, he's a friend that I'd worked with for a while. He said, Bianca, you just need to, you can't be here anymore. You got to go, because you're not. It's taking up space, and it's this damaging kind of safety that you have in a job like that that's holding you back from actually doing the thing that you should be doing as your main job. You know, is that you hold on to this other little job that we need. We need those jobs, you know, to give us the bread and butter so that we can make the art sometimes. But I think definitely for me it was taking up space that I now use for bigger, better things. But I still miss the supermarket. My old boss said he wouldn't give me a job again because he knows I would only be doing it purely for voyeurism purposes. One time a mouse ran across the floor in the store, and then later in the night a customer picked up a mouse and brought it to us, and I was like, what do you want me to do with that? And my manager, before he even spoke to the customer, he said, do not write about this on the internet. Do not write this down. This didn't happen. He kind of knew what I'd get up to.
I think
he was a fan.
You have vividly illustrated your point about the quotidian, the everyday.
Yeah.
Your fascination with the everyday, how that informs your arts practice, and how it's
for sure.
It's more than just illustration. It's
for sure.
It's storytelling,
it's living,
and memory, and documenting, and how all that comes together, and then how you are able to articulate that through illustration, through bringing up the way you bring up your kids, you know, and then how they are able to embrace the world. It's just mind blowing, Bianca. That's a wonderful thing to share, and it is. I think what you're doing is helping people like me to see that whatever it is you do in life, you can find meaning in it.
Oh, for sure. You know, just little exercises as well that you can do, and that in my lesson planning, hopefully I'll one day get to actually make them a reality. But of just, making so I'm going to write down 10 things at the end of the day that weren't shit. you know, or that were shit, or maybe you write both lists, or the wheel of good fortune on the fence of making people be in their own lives and take it in, and there's so much to be enjoyed from that. And it sounds trite, maybe it sounds childish. We talked about of kind of to observe the beauty of everyday life and enjoy it and document it and, allow yourself space in your brain to enjoy a sunset or to enjoy the texture of, sticking your hand in. The other day, my son was playing with black beans, tiny little black beans, and I was just like, just like, oh. I think it's all probably intertwined with neurodivergence somewhat. I mentioned I late diagnosed ADHD, and I think that's given me some framework to look back on my life and art making intertwined around that, and my sense of myself, my imposter syndrome or whatever. I've had this real unburdening of a lot of those things post-diagnosis of really deeply wanting to be someone, feeling like I had the capacity to be somebody. I think you can get hung up on who you were in high school and the potential that other people maybe saw in you or placed upon you. And then have I... My primary school teacher from grade 5 and 6, she will just leave likes or just do a really short comment on different things that I'm doing, and I just find that just deeply validating. I remember years and years ago I told her I was going to be a teacher, and she was really disappointed. She was like, I really had higher hopes for you than being a teacher. Herself as a teacher. So there's a nice kind of checking in that you do with yourself. I think when you allow yourself to take in, yourself in the world. So
yeah. I don't think there's anything I can add to that. You give me a lot of food for thought.
Oh, good. I really hope that when people were talking to me about the writing I do about skulls, I was trying to remove myself almost. And when SBS talked about doing something, they wanted it to all be about the checkout girl and me as a person. And I really wasn't interested in that. My whole ethos was that you could write not the exact same thing, but you could write it from your perspective. And any person working in that supermarket could have written their own. And in fact, I remember there was a girl I worked with, and she saw a parrot on somebody's shoulder in the supermarket, and it spoke to her, and she wrote about it on Facebook. And I was, awesome. Just take in your world. We have to work these shitty jobs. We have to do the kind of drudgery and of everyday life. But if you kind of don't take it so seriously as much as you're able to, and kind of see weird little differences and notice patterns, and I think I'm saying it like it's easy, I suppose, and it isn't easy. It's especially when you haven't done it in a long time, and sometimes I'll get out of the habit and then I'll go for a walk and try to notice things to draw. Invermay, where I live, I really love. I've lived here for a really long time, and I just it's a really I've probably got a zine's worth of stuff about Invermay to kind of flesh out about rooting yourself in your environment, wherever that is, and just immersing yourself in the visuals, the sounds, it's very sensory on lots of levels. So I could. Yeah, look, you've left me speechless. Just because it's just the ADHD running with it.
Well, I can relate to so much of this, and I'm sure so many listeners can, and they don't need me to you. I mean, you speak so lucidly about so many things that come together as an everyday practice for yourself in how you move through the world, and how you pass it on to others as well. So I hope that the listeners, you take as much away from this as I have. And Bianca, thank you. Before we close, you've mentioned your social media, and perhaps you're not going to be on it so much lately, but please
gently going back into it a little bit.
No. So where are people going to find you?
I have a website, so biancajagoe.com. Instagram, Facebook, all those channels. TikTok. I had one viral TikTok, and then I just never opened TikTok again. I I was like, well, what do you do after that? Anything? Do I have to do something?
I've made it. I'm internet famous.
I think it was 500,000 views or something like that. Yeah, it was mental.
Cool.
Yeah, it was just about, I have a little library. It was about the little library.
Yes.
Yeah, people loved. Again, I think that really aligns with the serious work that I do, I suppose, but that of just doing something for the good of doing it, putting it out there in the world and letting people experience it.
People love that.
I'm just not very good at taking credit for
okay.
things.
Okay, yeah.
So, self-promotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a very good friend who loves the little libraries, and it's a real thing here in Tassie, and I'm sure it is elsewhere. But yeah, look, I do have an idea for. So you have you've got the wheel.
Yeah.
Wheel of Good Fortune.
Yeah.
And you've got the lemon box
of lemons.
So you mentioned. So you know the barcode for limes, right? Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Maybe for the lemon box, it's about if people want a lemon, they have to remember
Put
a code.
In the code. Yeah. I've always really wanted to get like an old vending machine, or like one of those ones you put a little coin in and repurpose that for my own strange purposes. Put weird stuff in there. I like those little interventions that you can have as an artist. Oh, I call myself an artist. Little interventions you can have with people in their everyday that just might make some little synapses bubble or spark or something of that make you have a thought that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
That was the thought I had when I was left speechless, and I just couldn't articulate it. But it is this thing of how someone like yourself, just through your joy and your embrace of the everyday, is able to invite people into the way you see the world, or at least through the art you make.
Yeah,
they can start to see the world slightly differently to how they would normally, and maybe they press the pause button once in a while.
Yeah. I think that's all I'm asking. I don't think I'm going to change anyone's life, but I think that's the power of teaching as well, and what I really see, what I'm really drawn to, of just that you can plant those seeds, and again, not take credit for for what they grow into necessarily, but if you can kind of change one person's thought. My son, I mentioned, is really stoic. He's really he's kind of like the most perfect foil to everything I'm about because he's so, I kind of having my little flights of fancy and joy, and even my partner and my ex-husband are very similar, very stoic, very kind of like I have a fun idea, and their immediate reaction is to what are the problems with that? What's going to go wrong? And I think I was talking about some flight of fancy about the little library or something. And my current partner said that he and Cameron, my ex-husband, my friend, are the ballast to my hot air balloon. So I need to draw it, because me being this kind of full of hot air, just floating around, and I imagine they're kind of tethering me to the ground, probably vaping or something, kind of looking grumpy. But I think it's really important to have. I don't want to be too idealistic, too optimistic. Had very challenging life experiences myself. Somehow still really deeply rooted in joy. I guess it's a kind of like a compass, keeps you focused even in times when things are very bad, of hope, some little tiny glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
So, and I think that for me, teachers really did that for me when I was young, of having people who see something in you and invest in you and know you deeply. Yeah. So I hope, I just hope to share that with people, I suppose.
Thank you, Bianca.
Yeah. Thank you.
Look, listeners, A Guide to Grief, out in October.
Yes. I think first week of October in North America, but it can be purchased through Amazon. And so on. But I'm hoping to put a couple of copies into maybe local library and son's school and maybe see psychologists, child psychologists, and so on. We just want to make it accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I published a book last year, and a friend told me that actually we have a responsibility to send a copy to the Tasmanian State Library and also to the National Library.
Yes, it's a responsibility. Exactly.
Yeah. So it'll be out there, and it'll be accessible and available, and I think it embodies everything you've spoken about, and you're checking your watch now because...
Oh, no, I just have an alarm to remind me I have children.
Yes, I'm very mindful that we're getting close to pick-up time from school. But the book, for me, embodies this, so much of what you said, in that your illustration, it makes something that's really difficult to talk about so real.
It's an access point, I think, for people. Illustration, obviously. I did a project. Sorry, we're finishing up, but I have fibromyalgia. I also have osteoarthritis, really bad. And but the fibromyalgia, I did this program, this neuroscience and psychology program that's delivered through an app called More Good Days, and I did it and got a lot out of it personally, and then had this lovely symbiotic relationship with them where I did a whole bunch of illustrations for their kind of social media and their website. I was even on shirts and things, and I just really liked trying to use visuals to try to explain. I mean, it's called More Good Days because it's about focusing on that when you have chronic illness, how to have a good day, and what that might look like for you. My sister's an ultra marathon runner, so her good day is, a 50k run through the bush, whereas mine might be kind of hang out washing. You did it, and so I really liked the opportunity they would give me a concept and I would have to make it come to life visually, and it was this magical problem solving of how do you talk about pain, how do you something it's hard to talk about, it's not pleasant, and it's like grief and pain, we don't know how to, it's kind of taboo, it's complicated, it's sort of people have a lot of difficulty talking about it, and but that was one of probably the most fun projects that I've worked on, is just how to make pain, how to visualize that, how to translate it, and I think people absorb the written words more fully because they have this initial kind of visual that helps to trigger the topic for them in a positive way. So yeah.
You make wonderful work, Bianca. You speak about it so eloquently, and there is so much that we can take away from this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was really great to know your projects, what's in the works for you as well. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Connect, Curate, Create. I hope you found inspiration and insights that you can apply to your own creative work. For highlights and links, check out the show notes, and be sure to follow us on your favourite podcast player so you never miss an episode. Tune in next time as I continue to explore life and work in the arts.